At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and each week I'm joined by a panel of guests to discuss all things fandom and pop culture, primarily from a female perspective. You'll find everything from fanfic, to cosplay, to Schitt's Creek, to Supernatural, and everything in between. So put on your favorite piece of fandom merch, set aside that fanfic that you're writing about your OTP, and sit back and enjoy this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and on this episode, we are doing the opposite of what we did last week. Last week, we talked about character intros. This time, we are talking about characters' outros, their deaths. You know, we talked about birth, now death. Although, like I mentioned on our pop culture and fandom news episode from Wednesday, sometimes a character's death can be a rebirth. So that could be the case with these. I have no idea what my panelist has on their list. She doesn't know what I have on my list, although she could probably guess some. We kind of know each other well enough that we can usually guess, so she might be able to guess some of them. But let me introduce you first. So on my panel this week is Tiff. Hello, Tiff.
Hi. Hey, hello. I'm excited to talk about the Phoenix possibly rising in this episode.
I am too. I'm so excited to have you here. And before we get into character deaths, Tiff was supposed to be on our episode last week with favorite character intros. And unfortunately, she was not able to join us.
Yes. And you can tell them why. You can tell them why
I can.
why I was not able to join.
Okay.
Because darling daughter, not dear daughter, she's the older one. Darling daughter, the little one, turned off my notifications for my calendar. So I had absolutely no idea I was supposed to be recording at the time that Erin set the record for the podcast.
Yes. I was like,
my dog ate my homework. That's what it is. That's my excuse right now.
Yep. That's what happened. I'm sure parents out there listening can relate. So that is what happened. But I'm very glad that Tiff is here. I did mention one of Tiff's last week, which was Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I knew that would be on Tiff's, and I was texting Tiff while we were recording, and Tiff did confirm that. But I want to know, Tiff, we'll do the TV first. So what were your 3 favorite character intros from TV?
So yes, you got Spike head on. Absolutely. Season 2 of Buffy, just amazing. He blasts on the scene like a bat out of hell and just gives it to us for the rest of the Buffyverse. So amazing intro for Spike. I went with also Oberyn Martell, who fan favorite Pedro Pascal played in Game of Thrones, introed on season 4. Fabulous character. Absolutely fabulous. Loves men, loves women, loves theys. It's all good with Oberyn. I mean, the more the better, basically, with him. I mean, such a sensual character. I also had Brienne of Tarth. There's a lot of Game of Thrones people on this. Also from Game of Thrones season 2, Khal Drogo, played by Jason Momoa. Hello. Game of Thrones season 1. And then the child, a.k.a. Grogu, a.k.a. Baby Yoda.
I didn't even watch that, but I know this character because of the phenomenon that followed. So.
Yes. I have Baby Yoda on my phone case. I also have a bunch of gibbets for my Crocs. I have a bunch of Baby Yodas on it. I love Grogu. He's so sweet.
You'll have to ask, and you can do it in our new channel on our Discord. It's a fandom merch thing. Sarah, frequent panelist Sarah, is obsessed with this character and has so much merch, like so much. So you should definitely have her show you.
Yes, I need to collaborate to see where she gets her merch from, because I actually need a new phone case. So I'm looking for another Grogu phone case.
Yeah, definitely ask her. Yes. and show her your stuff because she will love it. So, and she will love that she has someone else to geek out about the character with too. Yep. So what about movies then? What were your 3 favorite movie intros?
So my movie, I had Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. He likes a match when they go to the Prancing Pony, which is an inn/an around the bar part. And so they call him Strider, the barkeep does. And he lights that match, and all you see is just the flame and just the top of his face. So you just see like from his eyes up. It's got a hood on. It's very mysterious. Fabulous. Because, I mean, yeah, I know what the character is, but if you've never read the books, you don't know who the character is. You just know it's mysterious and has some fabulous eyes. And then, this is kind of a cheat, but I'm going with it. Gandalf the White. Gandalf the White from Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, because this is a new character. Yes, I know he was Gandalf the Grey, but now he's Gandalf the White. So, yes, I mean, just, are you comforted by that? That's what he says when they can't see him. And Aragorn says, who are you? And then he just comes out of this bright light. And it's such a, like, it's resurrection. You know, it's amazing the way he comes out from that. Just, fantastic. And then my final, which was a hard one, but I went with The Winter Soldier from Captain America, The Winter Soldier, because this is the shock that this is actually, and he's not at that point in time, he's not Bucky Barnes. He's actually the Winter Soldier. So at that point, yes, different character, absolutely different character. And then, oh gosh, top 3 Marvel film, top 3. I wish they would go back to stuff like that because it was just, wow. That movie is just, it even gets me over my dislike of Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, I need to watch this. I know it's my aversion to the character of Captain America that has kept me.
I know. But see, he's not so Captain America-ish in that. It's more, he's Steve Rogers. He's just, trying to be like a regular dude more so than like Captain America.
But I love Sebastian Stan so much that it makes me want to, because I want to tell everybody, if you haven't, Sebastian Stan did an interview on Fresh Air last year. That is so, so good. I think it was last year or really early this year. It's so good. So I highly recommend listening to that and talking a lot about, coming to America and everything. It's a really fascinating interview. He's like, he's such a beautiful human being. I just think he's a very beautiful human being. So I recommend that. Yes. Exactly. I still haven't watched The Apprentice, so I just cannot.
I can't. No, I can't.
I cannot do it.
I can't. Like, I know he was nominated for that. I just can't. I cannot push through just the visceral disgust that I have. Not to mention he's way too good looking to play that orange demon. So
exactly. Yeah.
But legitimately, the very thought of it makes me want to vomit. Like, thinking about that. So I can't do it. I don't want my very, very, very high regard for Sebastian Stan to be colored by that.
Yes.
I just, yeah.
And I have to say, I knew you were going to mention characters from Lord of the Rings because I knew. I wasn't positive on the TV side, but I knew that would be mentioned in movies because I know you. So yeah, I'm glad I got to hear what your intros were. So thank you so much. So we're going to be spoiling things, everybody. And I'm going to try and put in the show notes every show we're spoiling. So you know. So you know which shows to prepare for. Yeah. So before we start naming some of our favorite character deaths, I did want to know, just like I asked for our favorite character intros, for you, Tiff, what makes a character death so memorable and impactful?
I think it's the way somebody dies. I think that's very important. It doesn't necessarily have to be a very, very huge part. The character doesn't have to be like a major character, but it's the manner in which they die that I think is the key to it sticking with you. because if you have somebody who has just this emotional, well shot scene, and you know it's coming, right? You know what's coming, but you still feel it like welling up in your heart and welling up in your mind, and your eyes get misty because you're feeling it so much. Even if you've read the book, if it's based off of a book or something like that, then I think that's what makes things it just hits a little bit differently. But I mean, also death can be shocking. It can be something that's completely out of the blue. I think I always use and this isn't on my list, but I always use the Drew Barrymore in a Scream scene, because to me, that's a great death. Not on my list, but it's definitely a great death because it's so unexpected. It's just completely out of the blue. Who does that? Who kills like the person that you think is going to be the main character off in the first 5 minutes of the movie? So utterly, utterly fantastic, right? Just incredible. Absolutely incredible. So I think that's what really hits for me. It's that emotional component. It can be coupled with the fact how the person that it's dying, how they play that death. I think quiet scenes for me work a lot better than like explosions. They do to me.
Yeah.
Quiet scenes are a little bit more hard hitting.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Yeah, I think, it can also be a catharsis at times, depending on the character, especially if it's a character that has caused any kind of misery, and then it can be kind of a catharsis to have them gone. It can also be a catharsis emotionally, like if you have been following this character for a long time and going through the emotions of the death. But I think also an impactful character death can be sometimes those really quiet deaths. And not necessarily shocking, although I think that also works, depending, though. If you're doing it just for shock value, I don't think it works. But if you're doing it and it's a shocker, but it makes sense to the story. But I'm thinking of one in particular that was a shocker, but it wasn't done for just shock value. It actually there was a meaning behind it, and it led to a lot of amazing stuff. And so I think that also makes a great character death. A great character death, when you're talking about also rebirth, can be a way of seeing a transformation. Like if you think of that death and you think of the person before that happened and then after that happened, and this is not on my list, and I know this isn't on Tiff's because she hasn't watched the show yet, and this is sort of spoilery, but if you know anything about Interview with a Vampire, it's not really, but the transformation in the television show with Louis, because it's so much more impactful than the movie ever was, because Jacob Anderson is 10,000 times the actor that Brad Pitt could ever be. But watching that transformation of Louis in the television show from when he is this human and then when he becomes a vampire, and watching that transformation as it happens, because that is a death. I mean, he dies and then he's reborn as a vampire. And so that transformation, when it's a character transformation like that too, when you are basically visiting not a new character per se, but like a different part of that character, a different version of that character. So I think that is another mark of a great character death. When you're looking at like horror movie deaths, I think it can also be something that can be memorable, like it sticks in your mind. Or it's like a patent of like the villain. It's the way you're introduced to the villain, maybe. The first kill you see. Or if you've been following a villain for a long time and they finally die. And that goes into, that way of the catharsis or getting rid of that character and going through that emotional journey. And when it's done well, it can be a form of catharsis, I think. All of that to say, I think the more impactful it can be, I think also depends on how it affects not only you, the viewer, but the characters in the story. Because if it's a death of like just someone and it doesn't impact anyone, or they don't really care, or there's no reaction, it's not as impactful or as memorable. I mean, I think it's kind of different in horror movies at times, but it's not as memorable or as impactful to the audience or to the viewer. Okay, well, like we did last week, we are going to start with television, and Tiff and I are just going to take turns going back and forth. We're going to name 3 and then take a break and come back and do movies. So, Tiff, what's the first of your favorite character deaths?
Okay. So I knew it was coming because I'd read the series. I pushed through and made sure when they first said that they were going to make a Game of Thrones series for television. I said, oh, okay, because it had been on my list, A Song of Fire and Ice, which is a saga that George R.R. Martin wrote. So I pushed through because I only had about, I think maybe 4 or 5 months to read it. And these books are bonkers big. Like we're talking about 1,000-page books. So I pushed through, made sure I read it. So I knew it was coming, but I didn't think HBO would legitimately knock off Lord Eddard Stark, aka Ned, the Warden of the North, in the first season. The season 1, episode 9, which is the finale, they believe he's going to be pardoned. He has confessed to treason, even though it was not treason. He was best friends with the king of Westeros, and he died during a hunting accident. And his son, air quotes, Joffrey, becomes king. And turns out, of course, that Joffrey was not his son, but that's a whole other thing. But anyway, Ned, who was essentially like I guess would be like a prime minister, you kind of consider him prime minister, finds out, makes the connections, and lets them know that, hey, tells his mother that Cersei, you have to pull him back from being, he cannot be king. The throne is not his. Well, it all becomes a thing. He gets arrested. All they say is that he has to confess that he committed treason against the crown, and he would pardon him. Well, guess what? Liar's gonna lie, and he is not pardoned. He lays his head down, and they chop off his head, people. And I thought it was going to be, and it's one of those things where it chops off, and then you're like, what just happened? It's everybody's frozen because guess what? His 2 daughters are there. Sansa is standing next to Joffrey, and she's in just a state of absolute apoplexy. His daughter, oh my gosh, why did I just forget her name? The little one, my little murder baby, Arya. There we go. So Sansa is standing on like the parapet, I guess, with the Baratheons, who includes Joffrey, the new king. And then Arya has hidden in the crowd, and she's, like whispering, let him go, let him go, let him go, let him go. And she's frozen. She's in shock. She can't do anything. It is such a visceral scene. Like it really is. I had no idea. I think that's the shock factor. It's a quiet death for Ned. I mean, yes, the crowd is going insane, and the whole thing is very violent. But Ned himself at the beginning, I think he knows what's actually going to happen. He doesn't think he's going to be pardoned. I think he's the only one besides Joffrey who is a complete psychopath. He's the only one that knows he's not getting out of this. And you can see it on his face. He's frightened, but it's like he's very resigned about it because he knows what's going on. And he just doesn't want his daughter, because he doesn't know Arya's in the audience and the crowd, but he doesn't want Sansa to watch. But Joffrey holds her face, so she has to watch. It's terrifying. It's horrific, but it's done very, very well. Very well. This cemented Game of Thrones as one of my top 3 shows until they pooped the bed in the last 2.5 seasons. So, but season 1, Ep 9.
I knew you were going to select somebody from Game of Thrones. Someday we will talk about this show. It's just a matter of me getting to the point where I'm going to watch this show. And also, I know everybody hates the last season. So I don't know if people want to be... Okay. I don't know if people want to be put through it. So it's also that. But I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. So, yeah.
Okay. I'll be there.
So I want to say, what was so interesting to me about this and coming up with these lists is this was actually harder for me than the intros. I had so many that I'm just kind of just magically just picking ones on here. And there are so many that I'm going to miss because I don't know why, but this was harder for me to narrow it down.
No,
and I didn't think it was
was.
going to be that way. I thought it was going to be easier, but
No.
it wasn't.
I'm picking them out of hats at this point. Like, I mean, seriously. I
That's
just
the
wrote,
way I
I'm
am,
writing
too.
everything down. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I've been affected by so much death.
Yes. So you'll see in movies, I kind of just stuck to one thing, and that was the way I could do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be too hard. But for TV, the first one I'm going to go with, and I don't know if this was on Tiff's long list, but that is Norma in Bates Motel. And this was a death you knew was coming because if you know Psycho and you know the whole story, you know Norma is eventually going to die. You just don't know how Norma's going to die. And Norma doesn't die the way you're expecting Norma to die. And I think that's why this death works so well, because I think you kind of thought, at least I did. I don't know if you did, Tiff, because I know we were some of the few people that actually watched this show. One of the best shows ever on television. By the way, everybody, you all missed out on a great show. But I don't know if you were thinking this, but I kept expecting this really violent, not to say this isn't a horrible death, but really violent death where it'd be stabbing, something like that.
Yes.
And instead, Norman, he like closes the vents. It's carbon monoxide poisoning. And he wants to die too. So he is trying to die with his mother. And it was not at all what I expected. And the whole scene and watching him prepare and him closing the vents and closing everything down. But the whole watching Norman prepare and watching him prepare the house and shutting things down and the song that is playing while he's doing it and just this quietness. There's this quietness to it that you're not expecting because you're really always expecting it to be such a visceral, violent death. And it's almost like, I mean, it is. It's like Norma never really knows. I'm sure, no matter, I don't know what your thoughts are on the afterlife, but I'm sure if you believe in an afterlife, she would have probably known then. But I think at the time, she doesn't know. She just dies. And so that's the other part is it's like this, like silently killing her, but also wanting to die and then not ending up dying. And it is also a death that transforms Norman, who already had deep problems and had already killed by this point, but it transforms him into who we knew from the movies Psycho, who the Norman Bates that we knew in that timeline. And then you also get the Norma that he talks to, the dead Norma, and then all this other creepy stuff. But it's such a pivotal death. And it was so essential that murder work and that death work because it's something you've been waiting for since the very first episode. And you thought it was going to happen, at least I did, like really soon. You thought it would happen in the first season. You didn't know it was going to take that long. And so it was that anticipation of that death. And it's almost a tragic, heartbreaking scene. It almost makes you cry, and just the performances. And, Vera Farmiga really did such an excellent job in that role and really deserved so much for that.
All the love.
And so it was just such a powerful, powerful death because you knew the character of Norma, who was messed up, not necessarily a good person, really messed up, but also a tragic character. And that death, I don't know, was as peaceful as it could be for a character as tragic as her, and as tragic as Norman too, even though Norman's a killer still. So yeah, it always sticks with me because it's not at all what I expected. And that's why I thought it was so powerful.
Like you said, the calm of it, the quiet of it, because you have this boy who revels almost in this organized chaos, right?
Yeah.
And is very much into the whole idea of the intimacy of stabbing. There's a lot of intimacy that goes into stabbing, and to a certain extent, strangulation also. You see that in a lot of domestic violence deaths, you see a lot of strangulation with that because it's the most intimate thing that you can do, right? Having literally choking the life out of somebody. But Norman seems to revel in the blood a little bit. So not wanting to mar his mother because he's so close with her, right? Not wanting to desecrate her skin, desecrate her body. We're just going to let you go to sleep and never wake up. I think that was a brilliant choice by the writers and producers. Absolutely brilliant. I cannot believe nobody was watching that show. We have impeccable taste.
I know. You all missed out, man.
You all missed out.
And you can listen to Tiff and Jen, my podcast, Brain Twin, and I talk about that amazing show too. Yeah, it still bothers me to this day that show, it's amazing we got as many seasons as we did because nobody was talking about the show.
I can't believe we got the amount of seasons that we did, considering the other things that we've liked and didn't have any resolution to the path. So yeah, still like almost a decade later, still.
I know.
So yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. But I think, the power of writing, power of, performance.
Yeah.
It worked in that instance.
It did. It really, really did. Yeah. So it's a fantastic show. So if you haven't watched that show, it's a spoiler in the way she died. So hopefully you didn't listen to this and get spoiled because I think it's better to not know how she dies because it works so well because it's not what you're expecting, like we said. So, but it fits. It makes perfect sense. It makes more sense than if he had stabbed her or anything. So, okay. So what's your next one, Tiff?
Okay. I think you will be surprised by this because, not surprised where it's from because it is, of course, from Buffy. But it's not who you think it is on Buffy. I'm going with our girl, Anya Christina Emanuela Jenkins, played by the effervescent Emma Caulfield, who is she was absolutely incredible in that role. Season 7, episode 22, which is, of course, the series finale, where they are facing the ultimate challenge with the first. And they're being overwhelmed. They're being cut down. It's do or die. And she's scared. And she's with Andrew, who's also like the worst person to be with in this situation because he's the biggest scaredy cat ever. And she's shaking and he's shaking. And she's like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? We're going to die. We're going to die. He's like, think of something that you hate the most. And she's like, floppy, jumpy bunnies. she gets this, just this wave of bravery going through her. And her death occurs off screen because when they all, everything is crumbling. It's this giant sinkhole that's essentially, sinking the town of Sunnydale. And so everybody's hopping on the bus and they're trying to get out of there. They're punching it. And Xander asks Andrew, because by some incredible reason, Andrew survives all of this. And he asks Andrew, where is she? How is she? And he said, and Andrew doesn't say anything. He just kind of shakes his head. And Xander says, well, how did she die? And Andrew says, she was magnificent. And you see, the final scene of Anya is her laying down, she's not face down, but she's on her side. Her face is on the ground and her eyes are open. And she's got a little trickle of blood coming out of her mouth. And I just think because Anya was a demon for anybody that didn't know. And she was a revenge demon. She focused on women who had been wronged and she gave them their revenge. And she becomes human, of course. And she always said, humans are, she's like, humans are so weird. She's like, they make no sense, right? Because she's like, why are you all staying? We should be leaving. That was always her kind of MO. We should be leaving. We should be going away from the danger. And for her to stand in the gap, legitimately stand in the gap and protect what had become her family, I think was such an awesome way for her to die. Even though it occurs, you don't see her dying. You just see the end result of her death. But I think it was really powerful writing. And yeah, I chose Anya, which it surprised me when I put her on the list. And I was like, you know what? I'm going with it because I do think her death was really, really amazing. Like it was a fantastic way for her to go out. It really was. So Anya Christina Emanuela Jenkins, born on the 4th of July.
No, that's a great selection. And I will always love that people don't know. I don't like bunnies. Bunnies do legitimately scare me. I will be fine walking by them. I just don't like them. I don't trust them. And like, they're like the only animal really that I don't trust. And so having a character, I know it was a joke, but still having a character be afraid of bunnies, it was like, finally somebody knows the truth.
You're like, I feel seen.
Exactly.
This from the bunny Ganda.
Yep.
The rabbit Ganda.
Yep. Exactly. Yes. Okay, I'm going to go with a death in Dexter, the end of season 4 in Dexter. And I know this was mentioned when we were talking about fridging earlier this year, so I understand the problematic aspects of this death, but at the same time, I think this is actually like one of the most impactful deaths on the show. We don't talk about Deb's death because that was wrong, but this is Rita in Dexter at the end of season 4, and Rita, of course, was Dexter's wife. Dexter had a child with her. She was there from season 1, and it was not a death you were expecting. And it happened, the Trinity Killer, who was the best serial killer on that show, hands down, played by John Lithgow in an incredible performance. And, you know, Dexter has him in the season finale of season 4, and he's got the Trinity Killer, and he's going to kill him. And the Trinity Killer basically alludes to, you think you got me, but I actually, you know, I'm going to have the last laugh almost, is kind of what he's alluding to. And Dexter kills him, and he's going to be going away on a trip with Rita and, you know, and Harrison, their son, and they're going to reconnect because they've had an up and down marriage and everything since they got married at the end of season 3. And Dexter comes home, and, you know, he hears Harrison crying, and he goes into the bathroom, and the tub is overflowing, and it's blood. There's just blood everywhere. And the Trinity Killer had killed Rita, and that was the manner that he would kill one of his victims. And the baby, Harrison, is sitting on the floor of the bathroom in basically blood, covered in blood. And it was also a profound moment because Dexter, you find out, was born in blood, quote unquote, born in blood. And his mom was brutally murdered when he was just a young child. And he was left alone with her body, along with his brother, in a storage container, and then found later, and he was covered in blood as a baby. And so it was like this full, like, circle coming back to his own son having to experience the same exact thing. And also this whole impact of Dexter had been trying that whole season to try and live a quote unquote normal life. And how can he do that and still be a serial killer? And is that even possible, meeting this Trinity Killer who was doing the same thing, except for he was just, I mean, Dexter is a killer. I'm not going to ever excuse that. But the Trinity Killer, you know, if you've seen season 4, you know, the Thanksgiving episode, which is one of the best episodes of television, period. And he's so terrifying in that scene. And that's when Dexter realizes, because he was trying to model himself after the Trinity Killer, and he realizes, this guy is abusive to his family, and I'm not going to be that way. And so this was a moment for Dexter to realize he had for so long tried to compartmentalize and separate his dark passenger, as he calls it, from his quote unquote regular life. And then his dark passenger, because of what he had been doing and because he had waited so long to kill the Trinity Killer, caught up to him, and he ended up suffering by losing Rita. who he can't really feel things, but I think that was as close as he would be to being in love with another person. I mean, the only person I think he ever really loved was Deb and to an extent Harrison. But I think that was just such an interesting dichotomy, and it kicked off whether you like the other seasons after that. I know it was a slow downhill after that because season 4 was such a remarkable season, so it's hard to top it. But you see in the very first episode of season 5 of how that impacts him when it's the first time you see him expressing this anger and this rage and this grief, this actual grief, when he murders someone in the bathroom, just a random person, and it's not him following the code that his dad instilled in him. It's not him murdering murderers. It's him just murdering some random person because he's so filled with rage and anger and at what happened to Rita. So it's just a very profound death, I think, a character death, and a character that you had watched for up until that time from the first episode. And I know many people didn't like Rita. I happen to have liked Rita, but that's really not the point. I don't think whether or not you liked her or not, it's the impact that it has on the whole rest of the show and on Dexter as a character. And also, how is he going to do this as a single dad now? And it impacts his relationship with Rita's kids. Her kids, especially her daughter, completely turn on Dexter after that. And it's just this huge snowball effect. So that is my number 2 choice, but it's so hard to choose these. So, Tiff, what is your last one in TV?
Well, I don't know how many people are actually going to remember this, but I honestly think it's one of the best doctor deaths that I've seen before. Season 6, episode 14, Dr. Lucy Knight, who was played by Kelly Martin on ER. Now, her character was one of those, it was interesting because, ER is obviously emergency room. It's emergency medicine. It's chaotic. It's not for everybody. And she was one of those people who you knew it wasn't for. She's on this rotation and she's not built for it. She's very gentle. She is having a hard time dealing with chaos and with the fast pace. And it shows when she does her rotation in psychiatry, and she's getting rave reviews from her residents that she's built for this. This is what she's built for. She's meant to go into psychiatry. Well, a guy comes in and he's presenting signs of psychosis, and they don't know if it's schizophrenia. They don't know if it's bipolar disorder. He's just showing a lot. They cannot necessarily stabilize him. And she goes to Carter, Dr. John Carter, played by Noah Wiley, and she's letting him know, okay, I see how he's presenting. We need to put him on a psych hold because this is what's happening. He's a time bomb, essentially. He's a ticking time bomb. Carter ignores her. Just go away, And what ends up happening is we don't see what happens with her. What we do see is when Carter comes into a room and he sees this Valentine on the floor and it's for Lucy. And he kind of smiles because they have this kind of like flirty enemy relationship going on because he was very condescending to her. And he smiles, but then he gets stabbed in the back a few times by that same patient who was, going through a psychotic break. And Carter falls, and under the bed is Lucy. And there's blood everywhere. I guess I have a thing for people with their faces on the ground like that because her face was on the ground like that too. So what the heck is that? What does it say about me? I think if I was a director of photography, that would be okay. Now lay your head down do that. Okay, that's a shot right there. That's it. Hold for 20 seconds. So she's laying there, and the next episode is them trying to get her stabilized. She's in surgery. They think that they have her stabilized, but her body begins to break down. She needs to get what's called a greenfield filter. Essentially, she's in the catheter lab waiting on this, I guess it's a stent. And she whispers because she has a pulmonary embolism, and they're talking about it, and she's whispering. She can't talk at this point, but she goes, so she's like saying PE for pulmonary embolism when they're trying to say it. So she's still trying to like almost diagnose herself at the same time. And it's very anticlimactic because she dies in the catheter lab waiting on this fix for, for her body. And she dies. She doesn't die necessarily from him. Yes, the stabbing obviously, exacerbated things, and then her body breaking down. But it's like she was going to be helped. She was there. She was right there, and she dies. And I remember my mom and I would watch it like, what just happened? Did she really just die? Like, are you serious? This doesn't make any sense because Dr. Luka Kovac, he throws like a bunch of medical equipment, like he throws it against the wall because he was very close with her. And it's so anticlimactic from the violence of what happened. And I think that's a great choice by the writers in that too. The violence that happens to her versus how she actually passes, and I think we probably talked about the choices that they make with that, just this harsh, violent act, and then this quiet death. I still, that one haunts me. Her whispering PE, that haunts me. I still remember that. Like, I still remember that in my mind. And it was a toss up between her and Dr. Mark Green, who played by Anthony Edwards, because he went through it with his death. He had a brain tumor. It was just a decline, just a slow decline to where he couldn't function anymore. And that one was really tough. But I think hers, because she was so young, she was just so young. But Kelly Martin, the actor who played Lucy, her sister had lupus. And that's what I read. And she said she didn't feel comfortable on a medical show anymore when her sister was diagnosed. So she basically wanted out of her contract. And they were, didn't know that. Yeah. And so they let her out of her contract. So, yeah. So that one stuck with me though. That was hard. That one was hard.
Yeah. I had kind of fallen out of love for ER. Honestly, by that point, I had stopped watching it. I stopped watching it pretty much after Juliana Margulies' character left. A little bit, before that, I'd kind of gone in and out. But I did watch that episode, the episode where she stabbed. I didn't watch the episode after. And it is one of the most disturbing scenes I have ever seen on a non-horror show in my life. I remember it so vividly. I remember hearing the Be Still My Heart by Battle Flag, Low Fidelity All-Stars playing.
Yes, and the music.
Yes, it's just like, and the look on her face and just the reason it is so shocking is because the violent nature of it is so realistic, because this is something that could happen to you, is really the thinking. And so that to me is why it's even creepier. I will never forget that. It's like one of those things, like I've seen clips, because this death makes lists of like the most impactful deaths everywhere. And I was wondering if either one of us was going to mention it. And it is one of those where it is like, you will never get that image out of your head. And anytime you hear that song, at least for me, you can kind of jump to that scene.
Yeah. It runs back like in a loop. As soon as I hear the song, it's that's all. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're watching it in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's disturbing when he gets stabbed. I'm not saying it's not disturbing when Carter gets stabbed, because you're not expecting it happens. But it becomes more disturbing because you didn't see her get stabbed. You are seeing her after and seeing her on the floor. And it's so terrifying. It's really one of the most terrifying scenes in any television show that is not a horror show. So yeah, it's very impactful.
It's so purposeful, the way they shot that. You see the violence against Carter. And you see the woman who has already been, violated. after that. You see the after effects of that, and how often does that happen in real life? So I think that was almost, I don't know if they did that on purpose, but that's how I kind of read it.
Yeah.
This is the way things go in real life all the time. We see the after effects of a man harming a woman, but they'll show the violence against the man. It's right there for you to see and to go help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the woman is already past the point of help.
Yeah. Okay, I am tossing up between two, and I'm kind of going to end on something that this may be an interesting choice because this is multiple characters in the same death, and this is more about the person doing the killing than it is about the actual death. And so I was trying to choose between a few things for Supernatural, and I landed on when Dean in season 10 in the episode The Prisoner kills the Stein family. And the reason I decided to do this one is because, number one, I don't care what you say about me. I think this is one of the hottest and sexiest things ever. Just watching him. I'm not saying it's sexy to murder people. I'm just saying there's something about, this is when Dean is full Mark of Cain mode, and watching him throughout this episode because he's motivated by the Mark of Cain, but also what pushed him over the edge was Charlie's death, which was totally ridiculous and stupid. But putting that aside, in the next episode, watching him take out the Stein family who were responsible for this death in such this way where it was like, this is not a Dean we're used to seeing. Dean dispatches and kills monsters all the time, but there's this coldness to it and this revenge aspect to it and this pure hatred. He's motivated by pure hatred. And the whole episode of him finding the Steins, him being pulled over even by the cops, and the Steins are really rich. This is, they're basically supposed to be like Frankenstein family, and finding them. And I mean, they were stupid, but in this whole episode, it's just, I think, really well done. And when he gets pulled over by the cop, and even leading to that, and he gets arrested, and he's even sitting there, and the cop, is watching him just like, what? And then like Dean knocks over a container with like holding like pens or whatever, and distracts the cop. And then he, and the cop's like, what are you, a cat? And then he like attacks the cop, gets his car, all of this stuff. And the way he's doing everything is so incredibly like harsh and like a killer. It's not like a hunter, it's a killer. And it's a different side of Dean. I think it's also incredibly sexy, but we can unpack that at another time. I'm not the only one who thinks this, okay? I'm not the only one. So Paula and Moth agree with me here. So it's
have some layers to pull back.
It's not just me. It's not just me who thinks this, okay? I'm not the only disturbed one out there, okay? And then when he's talking to the sheriff or whoever, and he's like, do you know who the Steins are? The Steins are like gods. And he says, yeah, well, I kill gods. It's just this power in it. And then when he gets kidnapped by the Steins and he's lying on their operating table because they take parts from people, and he's tied down, and he is not at all afraid because he's like, if you kill me, I'm just going to come back as a demon and you'll all die. If you let me go, maybe some of you will make it through. I don't know. And then he gets loose, and then there's this part where they have like a piece of cloth over his mouth, and he pulls it down, and there's just something in the way he does that that's so powerful and impactful. And then probably the most impactful part of this, not just because he doesn't kill Cass, but you think he's going to kill Cass, but there's a part where there's the youngest Stein who really doesn't want to be like his family. He's actually an innocent. And he happens to be at the bunker where the Stein family is going to destroy everything. And he's confronting Dean, and he's like, I'm not like them. I'm not like them. You don't have to do this. And you see Dean pause, and he's got the gun up. He's covered in blood. And he's like, yeah, yes, I do. And he shoots him point blank in the head. And it is like, boom, the impact of that. It's like, okay, yes, he was scary before, but he just killed someone who actually, the Dean that you know and love, probably wouldn't have done that. I still love him. It's not like He's my favorite all-time character. There's not anything that this character could have done probably that would have made me hate him forever. So I will defend everything he does. You can listen to It's a Dean Thing. Moth and Paula are on my side on this. And we will definitely, when we get to season 10, be talking about this particular episode. But I just think the whole murder of the Stein family, and it's not because of the family, it's not because of them, it's because of watching this character devolve into something that compounds his PTSD and his self-hatred for himself once the mark is gone. This helps compound that. And the fact that the episode starts with him telling Sam that Sam should be the one that died instead of Charlie. And so it's, and him beating Cass so severely that you almost thought he was going to kill Cass because he, you just see the angel blade go down and then you're like, wait a minute. And then you see that he didn't kill Cass and him saying, next time I won't miss. So it is this, like, I don't know, it's just this very powerful. I think it's one of the best episodes of Supernatural. I think the Mark of Cain and Demon Dean arc is one of the most interesting arcs for Dean. And I just think that was kind of one of the most climactic parts of it. Just one other episode left in that season. And then that was the last season that was great on that show.
And then the show ended.
Anyway. And then it slowly started going really downhill. But we'll be getting that into that and It's a Dean Thing. So we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to name our 3 favorite movie character deaths. So we'll be right back.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Okay, Tiff. So we are going to do the same thing we did with television, only with movies. And we're going to go back and forth. And we're going to, again, name 3 of our favorites. So, Tiff, what's your first one on this list?
Well, you already know what I'm going with. So you at least know where it's from. So, first off is Boromir, son of Denethor of Gondor. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. And what people have to understand is Boromir he's a warrior. He is the eldest son of the steward of Gondor. So he's up there. He's a VIP, right? And he joins the Fellowship on the quest to destroy the One Ring at Mount Doom in Mordor. And he devolves into the madness of the ring. The ring gets to him. And he abandons his quest to protect Frodo at all costs. And in doing that, he realizes just how far he's fallen from what he's supposed to be doing, from his responsibilities. And his ending is very powerful because he ends up, Merry and Pippin are facing Uruk-hai, which are very, very, very large and scary dark elves, essentially. And they are, here they are, 2 hobbits holding up, rocks and small little knives, because, there are swords, but they look like knives because they're hobbits. And here he comes, Boromir's charging through, and he takes on all of these Uruk-hai. I mean, there has to be probably 20 of them. These are big, scary things. And he protects them to the best of his ability and gets shot with arrow after arrow, but he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. He keeps getting back up. It's, what do they say? You get knocked down 7 times, you get back up 8 times, and he keeps on going. He keeps on getting up. He keeps on getting up. But this last one is, it's right by his heart. He literally has arrows poking out of all the places on his body. And he is sitting against a tree because that fine piece of man flesh, Aragon, kills the Uruk-hai that was about to kill Boromir. And they had a very contentious relationship because Aragon is essentially the lost king of Gondor. They all say the line was broken, but Aragon is the true king of Gondor. And he comes up and he's trying to keep Boromir still and trying to snap off the ends of the arrows. And he's like, leave it. He's like, I have not done my duty. All is lost. The hobbits have been taken. The little ones have been taken, and my city will come to ruin. He's talking about Gondor. And Aragorn says that I don't know what, strength is left in my body, but I will not see the white city fall, nor our people fail. And Boromir, that gives him a sense of peace. And he gives him his sword, and he holds his sword to his chest, and he says, I would have followed you to the end, my captain, my king. And then he just passes away. I was a mess in the movie theater. I was a mess trying to hold it together, trying to hold it all in. Ripping up napkins. It was a lot. Shout out to Sean Bean, because that performance was just chef's kiss, from the arrogance, and the pure, essentially hatred he had for Aragorn and what he thought was this useless quest to get rid of this ring that he thought he should be able to wield and that would save his city. No, it destroys everything that it touches. That's the whole point. So, to come from that to acknowledging Aragorn as his captain, as his king, that was huge. And then, they put him it's essentially, well, not quite a Viking death, because, they usually push him out in a boat and then they set them on fire, cremate them, but he goes over a waterfall instead. His corpse gets baptized by water. So it always makes me very misty whenever I see it. And that's why that's why dear daughter's not ready yet. That's why she's not ready for it. I'm ready for all the things.
So what I decided to do to make it easier on myself is I'm focused on horror deaths. These are not going to be necessarily the coolest kills, although some of these could fall in that category as well. I tried to go for ones that, I don't know, had some kind of lasting impact, that were a little bit more important with the characters that died and stuff like that. So the first one I'm going to do, and this will be a controversial one, I don't care what you say.
There's no controversy with me.
The listeners, this will be a controversial one because a lot of people complain about this. I don't care. I really enjoyed Michael's death in Halloween Ends. I know a lot of people do not like that movie. I'm not going to give away all my feelings on that because Jen and I haven't discussed it yet on Twin It. I don't know if she's going to be listening to this, but I frankly think it's an amazing death, an amazing final scene between Michael and Laurie, and watching them fight in the kitchen, because it happens basically in the kitchen. And basically there's almost a moment in this fight between Michael and Laurie where you're seeing flashes of all of their years of fighting and battling together in this particular timeline. And Laurie has almost resigned herself in a way to maybe she will just die with Michael. Both of them will just die together, which, spoilers, that does not happen. But that's kind of almost what you see there, is she's like, I am willing to die to take you out of this world so that the town of Haddonfield, so that people don't have to deal with your evil anymore. I'm going to take you out. Your evil is transferring to other people in a way. That's kind of what happens in Halloween Ends. Then she gets drawn out of it because her granddaughter comes back. Her granddaughter left. Her granddaughter comes back, helps her a little bit with it. But then she also gets an upper hand. She's knocked over the refrigerator on him. She's stabbing him. And then she's also walking around and she is slicing up his arm. It's so interesting to watch to me because there's brutality in their fight, but then there's this slow, methodical way that she's slicing up his arm where it's almost like she's getting pleasure, but she's also doing it methodically, almost like a surgeon. It's just interesting to me to watch. I don't know. And she also takes off his mask. And, he's an old man. He has aged. He is not permanently young. And it's like fighting this human being who really isn't human, but fighting him and basically saying, I'm no longer going to be afraid of you. I am no longer going to let your fear win. I'm going to defeat you. And then also the town is going to take part in this. So then they get the body, tie the body down on top of her car. They drive it almost like a funeral procession down the street, and all these people in the town are following in their cars. And you see people from the previous entries in the David Gordon Green trilogy following behind. You see the woman whose husband was murdered, in one of the most brutal murders I've ever seen Michael Myers do. And she somehow survived. She uses a wheelchair now, but she is following as well. And then you see the little boy from the first Halloween in the David Gordon Green trilogy. And he's also following because he saw his babysitter get murdered. He almost got murdered. And it's just this town is taking control and they are going to be able to dispel of this evil. And then they go up to basically a cruncher. I don't know what they're called, but I'm not using the right word. I'm sorry. I should have looked it up. But basically if you were taking tree limbs and you put tree limbs into a thing and it shreds them.
Yeah.
So then Laurie's standing on top. Yes, it's like that. Yeah. So Laurie's standing on top of that and she has the body. They turn it on and her granddaughter's there too. And she takes the body and puts it in the wood chipper and you see it basically get flattened and put in half and go through and die. And to me, it's a very satisfying death because even though, eventually they've been talking about that there's going to do TV with this, eventually he'll probably come back in some kind of timeline. But this is such a finality in this timeline of the death because you see him completely eviscerated. And I know many people out there that are fans of this series and are fans of Michael Myers. And everybody should know I am a huge fan of Michael Myers. I collect Michael Myers stuff. I understand that for some people this was not satisfying and that this movie as a whole was not satisfying because Michael Myers is not in it that much. I understand, but I still think this was such a great end. And it's not the end of the movie, but it's the end of Michael Myers. And I think it's a very great death because it's not just Laurie finally exorcising this demon in a way. It's also the town because Michael had an impact on the whole town. So I think it's a great and wonderful end for this character. And so, yes. So I am holding firm to that.
Draw your line in the sand. I like it. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Nice.
So, Tiff, what's your next one?
Well, to the surprise of nobody, I have another Lord of the Rings entry. This one is going out to King Theoden of Rohan in Return of the King. And you talk about a blubber machine in the theater. Every time I went to see this, and I went to go see it an embarrassing amount of times, people, because this is pre-streaming. So it wasn't going to come out on DVD until like a year later, right? Mm-hmm. So I saw it in theater a lot, and I boo-hooed every single time. This man goes from being, I guess, possessed. That's the best word. Yeah. He goes from being possessed by Saruman to, having to deal with not doing the right thing to protect his people and taking them to Helm's Deep and essentially running them into a massacre. And then having Aragorn be the one to rise up and protect everybody, to accepting his limitations as not only a king, but as a warrior. He's very much a warrior king. He says to Gimli, I fought many wars, Master Dwarf. I know how to defend my keep. And in that instance, he actually didn't know how to defend his keep. But he turns it around in Return of the King. And his end is an incredible end. It is Bernard Hill, rest in peace, was I think one of the few actors that could actually pull off this role, because out of the chaos of battle, and this is a massive battle that's going on, out of the chaos of battle, he's swiped by a Nazgul, which is like basically like a big old flying dragon. No, well, more like a flying eel / dragon. That's the best way to describe them. And he's knocked off his horse not knocked off his horse. He's knocked into by the Nazgul, and the horse lands on top of him. And his niece takes up, Eowyn, she takes up her sword to protect him against the Nazgul, and she defeats them. And she says, I'm here to save you. He's like, I know your face. And he says, Eowyn. And he's like, what are you doing? And she said, I'm here to save you. And he says, you already did. And his lasting speech, which I do know all the words to, I'm not going to give it to everybody because it makes me sad. But his lasting speech is basically him acknowledging that he had done some wrongs, but he finally did some right. And he can go to his fathers and be at peace with that and feel like he belongs with them. And then he passes away. He doesn't close his eyes. His eyes are open, and he just takes his last breath. And that's another, Peter Jackson, I will always sing Peter Jackson's praises when it comes to the original trilogy. I do not like the Hobbit trilogy. It's ridiculous. But with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, his particular shot of this is incredible, because literally while they're doing all of this, while they're having this extremely quiet moment, you can see all of the movement in the background and on the side. The battle is still going on, and they just have this little bubble of peace, this little peace bubble where they can talk and they can hear each other. And her uncle can show her how much he actually loves her, because I think that is pushed aside somewhat in Two Towers. He has the ultimate respect for her, but you don't necessarily always see the love. And I think in Return of the King, he does show it a lot, not just in that death scene, but before that as well, when he's trying to comfort her, when Aragorn has to choose his own path to something else that does not include, she's heartbroken by it. So it's a wonderful end. It is an absolute wonderful end. I've memorized the dialogue. I'm not going to give it to everybody. You have to watch it.
Okay. Well, once again, like I said, I'm just doing horror ones. I do have a ton of them though. But so next up, I'm going to go with Tina's death in the first original A Nightmare on Elm Street. And the interesting thing about the first A Nightmare on Elm Street is I think when you're first watching it, you initially think that Tina will probably be the final girl. And of course, Nancy is the final girl. And this is such a bloody and visceral death. And while Freddy becomes kind of a comic character, kind of becomes comedic as the series progresses, he is not at all in the first one. And this death you are watching, and her boyfriend is watching in horror as her body, by some invisible force that he can't see because it's in her dream, is dragging her body up the wall. And it's so bloody and just so like it changes everything. And it's one of those, like was mentioned earlier by Tiff with Drew Barrymore's death in Scream. It's another one where you're not really expecting it because you really do think this is going to be the final girl. And then to watch her death, which is so bloody, just so bloody, and kicks off everything that happens after. after that. And I think it's one of the most memorable deaths in the whole franchise of Nightmare on Elm Street. And, I know in that one, people generally point to the bed death with Johnny Depp's character being sucked in the bed. And I agree, that's another great one. And I debated on putting that one on here too. But I think this one is a little bit more impactful only because you really get to see how you might not be able to rely on what you think you're going to be able to rely on in this series. And I think that kind of holds up too. So that's my number 2.
That is haunting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That scene, like, I hate that Johnny Depp scene, like being sucked into the bed. That's just the idea of that. Cause I have this thing against quicksand. So yeah.
Yeah. As we all did.
As we all did. Any 70s and 80s child. Yeah. We hate quicksand because, it was going to appear out of thin air and suck us in.
Yeah.
So bed sucking you in. Oh my gosh. But Tina, getting slung up the wall.
Yeah.
Very, very impactful, but
yes. Yeah. It is. It's very an interesting scene. So yeah. Well, for time, we're going to take our last Christmas break. I don't know why I said Christmas break. That was weird. Our last commercial break now. And then when we come back, we're going to give our final one quickly. And then we are going to do 6 Degrees of Finn. So we'll be right back.
Did you know using your browser in incognito mode doesn't actually protect your privacy? Take back your privacy with IPVanish VPN. Just one tap and all your data, passwords, communications, browsing history, and more will be instantly protected. IPVanish makes you virtually invisible online. Use IPVanish on all your devices, anytime you go online at home and especially on public Wi-Fi. Get IPVanish now for 70% off a yearly plan with this exclusive offer at ipvanish.com/audio.
Okay, so Tiff, what is your third and final favorite character death? I know it's hard.
Yeah, because I have 4 like really, really important ones on my list. I'm going to go with one I think that you probably may have had on your list, maybe, but I know you only chose horror, so I know you're not going to say this one. I'm going with Jackson Maine from A Star is Born, played by Bradley Cooper. And the reason I'm going with this, and because so this is the 4th iteration of A Star is Born. There was one in the 30s, there's one in the 50s with Judy Garland, the 70s with Barbra Streisand and Chris Christopherson, and then this one, of course, with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. So in the other 3 before 2018's, the guy is always, it's an accident the way he passes away. It's one of them is a drowning, the other one is actually 2 of them are drownings. One of them is a car accident. Then you get to this one, and I think it's a really bold choice of them for Jackson to unalive himself. I think it's a really bold choice to move away from the idea that wasn't an accident, or was it them actually doing something? Because, drownings happen all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody was actually trying to unalive themselves. They just, they go out to the ocean, they're trying to swim, they get pulled out by a current. They get a cramp in a pool, they drown. And car accidents happen all the time. This is a purposeful event for him. And it's very hurtful because you think that he's on the right track. You think that he's getting to where he needs to be. This is a man who is a raging alcoholic, who is the reliance on not only alcohol, but the drugs as well completely overtakes him. And then you think comes out of rehab. He seems like he's doing okay, but he's not, because recovery is not a straight line. Recovery has a lot of bumps and curves and twists and things like that. And his recovery he can't get over that final hump. He can't get to that next stage of the recovery. And having I think it's, not showing it. Thank you for that, writers and producers and directors. Thank you for not showing that. All we see is just a silhouette. And we just see the silhouette. And we see, of course, the dog sitting there as well. I think it's a really bold choice. Like it's very bold for them to go completely away from what the other three did. And I think that's why this one, don't get me wrong, I love the one from the 70s, Barbara Streisand for life, but I think this one is better. I think this one is better, even though Barbara and Chris Christopher, they just have incredible chemistry in the 70s version. But that's my third one. It was a really hard choice, Erin. I cannot believe you only gave me two.
Well, it's also time, but yes.
Yeah,
I know. Trust me, I have so many that I want to mention. But that is a great choice. You can go and listen to our episode talking about A Star Is Born that we did, that Tiff was on as well. That's a movie that owned me, like it was a part of my personality when it came out. So that movie means a great deal to me. So that's why I had to focus on horror, because I'm sure that would have definitely made my list. So thank you for mentioning that. So I'm going to go with a fun one. I know that sounds weird, but I'm going to go with a fun one. So one of the best deaths I've seen in a slasher movie in recent memory in the past decade. And it's from the movie In a Violent Nature, which I know some people think is boring, whatever. This movie is from the point of view of the slasher. I love this movie. I don't really necessarily like the end, but I love this movie for the most part. And there is a very memorable death in this. And this movie is from the point of view of the killer. So until towards the end, when it kind of shifts a little bit, you don't know these characters that he's killing. So there's a death where Johnny goes and he kills this woman doing yoga on a cliff. And he not only kills her, but he ends up, I don't mean to laugh, but it's, you have to kind of laugh in slasher movies, okay? I'm sorry. And he goes and he kills her, and he basically twists her body and makes her body come out and then around and then through her, like kind of like in a pretzel, almost a yoga pose.
Oh my gosh.
And then he just ends up tossing her body over the cliff. But anyway, it's just this very violent death that keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And it's so ridiculous that you kind of have to laugh, because it's almost like he's trying, this is going to sound really fucked up, but go with me. It's almost like he's trying to make a piece of art.
Well, I mean, it sounds like he's trying to do like clay, or like he's trying to do a sculpture.
Exactly. He's using all of his strength to just pull her through and just, really just eviscerate her completely and entirely. And it is one of the most memorable kills. You can probably watch it on YouTube now. I don't know. If you don't want to watch the whole movie, you can watch the whole movie on Shudder. But if you don't want to watch the whole movie, which if you're a slasher fan, I do still recommend you watch it. I know people are like, it's so artsy. And there's no score in this movie, which actually I think is a brilliant choice. But people think it's boring, whatever. When my sister and I saw this in a movie theater, we were sitting next to this guy, and the movie theater was packed, okay? And I love seeing horror movies in packed theaters. My sister, me, and the guy sitting next to my sister were the only three in the movie theater that laughed throughout this whole movie, because you kind of have to in slashers. I'm sorry, but I know a lot of people that watch slashers agree with this. Sometimes it's so ridiculous, you kind of just have to let out a laugh. And that's kind of the way it was. So the yoga death in A Violent Nature, if you've seen it, you understand. I am gathering Tiff has not seen this movie. If I can find this scene on YouTube, I'm sending it to you, Tiff, because it is one of the most outlandish. It's not outlandish like the bedroom scene in Terrifier 2, which goes on and on and on, because that is something that movie is not for everybody. Not even every horror fan can stomach that movie. That movie is a lot. A lot. It's over 2 hours long too. So
wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's a lot of horror.
Yeah, and I like the Terrifier movies, but I don't like the director anymore. But anyway, that's another story. I've talked about it before. But anyway, so thank you, Tiff, for giving me those, for sharing your 3. I know it was really hard to do, but sharing the 6 total. And I'm sure everybody out there is like, why wasn't this mentioned? Well, we only have so much time. So please share with us some of your favorite deaths. I also have decided that as a Patreon bonus in October, we are going to count down our favorite horror kills, our favorite kills in horror films. So whatever they are. This one, the Terrifier one, might make the list again in that one. And so if you want to hear that episode in October, become a Patreon supporter today. Link in the show notes or go to our website. It's a fandomthingpod.com. Okay, so time to play 6 Degrees of Finn. So Tiff, what did you use and how did you connect Finn?
So I use Bernard Hill, who I think actually had the best death in The Lord of the Rings, and just an awesome character arc as well. So Bernard Hill was in Dirty Something with Rufus Sewell, another of my faves, who was in Judy with Ben.
Oh, we haven't used Judy in a while. Good one. I
still have not seen. I have mixed feelings about Renee Zellweger, so...
I do too, Tiff. I do too, okay? I am not really the biggest fan of hers. She is fantastic in that movie, and I'm not a fan of hers. So take that which you will. The movie is so-so. It's kind of like a Lifetime movie, to be frank. But she is so good, and I am the same way as you with her. I'm very mixed on her. So.
I'm taking the advice, and I'm going to watch it.
And I also love Rufus Sewell. Adore him. Oh my gosh, I adore that man.
I adore him so much.
Yes. Oh. Okay, I used Dexter, and in Dexter, alongside Michael C. Hall, was Jennifer Carpenter, and Jennifer Carpenter was in the fantastic movie A Mouthful of Air with Mr. Finn Wittrock. There you go. That's one of my favorite Finn Wittrock movies. Amanda Seyfried is fantabulous in that, but trigger, warning for suicide. Trigger, huge trigger for postpartum depression, for all of that.
All the things.
It's heavy. It was very, woo. Whoa, did it knock me over? Okay. So, okay. So thank you so much again, Tiff, for joining me on this episode. So we're going to go ahead and close out. So Tiff, tell our lovely listeners where they can find you.
So I am at Who Is Tiff's Me. Here, there, a little bit of everywhere, mostly on the Discord channel. We have politics, we have distractions, we have pets, we have books, we have theater, we have movies, we have TV. It's a lot of fun. Come say hello.
Yes, it is a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun over there. And I added a new channel when I said I wasn't going to add any more. I have stopped, though. I have banned anymore, but I added a Fandom merch one. But you can also, speaking of pets, and you can see her pictures on our Discord channel, but you can also follow Fergie the dog, who loves horror movies, so agrees with all of my picks in horror. And you can follow her on TikTok at Schroeder and Fergs. That's SCHROEDERANDFERGS. It's long, but it's worth it. To find all our past episodes, our links to our social media, Discord, and once again, a link to our Patreon, head on over to our website. It's a fandomthingpod.com. And next week, we are off. I decided to take a break. It's amazing. I'm actually not going anywhere. I am taking some days off, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm having a little bit of a staycation. But I also decided I would take a break from the podcast. This is really hard for me to do.
No.
I've done it for vacations, but it's hard, but I'm doing it. So I'm very proud of myself. We will have another kind of off in the beginning of December, but that's more, we are going to have our bloopers episode that week, but that's still kind of a week off. But I decided I would give myself a week off from this podcast. So we will not have any episodes next week, but we will be returning the following week with Tiff, and we will be talking about sex workers and the portrayal of sex workers in both film and television. So
very important.
Yes, I have a feeling that's actually going to be kind of a heavy episode. So we will have triggers, I'm sure. And then the following week, we're going to be talking about one of those movies, Pretty Woman, which is celebrating an anniversary this year. It's turning I don't even want to say. I'll say it. I'll say during the episode. No. I'll say during the episode. And then the week after that, to close out the month, we are going to be talking about Severance, the show Severance. So we will be spoiling it. So catch up. Tanya is going to be on that one along with Sarah and Tanya. I'm sure they will have their Marxist corner because the show is all about capitalism. So
yep. I know Tanya is going to bring the heat.
Yes. Yes. So that should be fun. And then after that, music month. It's all grunge. So, yep. So until next time, remember it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate, and free Palestine.
Did you know using your browser in incognito mode doesn't actually protect your privacy? Take back your privacy with IPVanish VPN. Just one tap and all your data, passwords, communications, browsing history, and more will be instantly protected. IPVanish makes you virtually invisible online. Use IPVanish on all your devices, anytime you go online at home and especially on public Wi-Fi. Get IPVanish now for 70% off a yearly plan with this exclusive offer at ipvanish.com/audio.